Hey everyone, it's me Matt here, and today I want to bring you a visual model for sleep and dream states. At the end of the video, I'm also going to announce some discount codes for a big sale on my book and my courses, so if that's what you're here for, if you're just here for that, then feel free to skip to the end of the video. Otherwise, stick around as I think you'll find this quite interesting. So there are a lot of terms and a lot of different things involved in lucid dreaming, and I think for beginners some of it can be a bit overwhelming and confusing. And so I thought that something that might be good to do is to visualize some of this. And the other thing about this is that this will help you understand what I'm referring to when I refer to certain states, because there are some terms that I use on this channel that aren't necessarily standardized. Like I talk about the void space or stuff like that, or I talk about the SILD or the sleep-induced lucid dream. By visualizing these sleep and dream states in this video, I think I'm going to help you guys understand that so you always know what I'm talking about. And quick disclaimer before I begin, this is my personal model of the different states involved in sleep and dreaming, based on my own experiences and my research over the years. You might see things differently or categorize or name things differently, and that's perfectly fine if you do so. So let's get on to the states. I believe that there are 4 different states that you can be in when you're asleep. And I'm going to go through each of these from the most common state to the least common, and then I'm going to describe and define them. So the first state is what I call the void, and this is basically dreamless sleep. If you become aware or lucid during this state, you will simply appear to be without a body in a black void, hence the name. And if you're not lucid and aware during this state, then it usually goes completely forgotten. After all, this is where you spend most of your sleep. Dreams only make up a small portion of your sleep, the rest of it is sort of spent in this void, but you usually don't remember spending any time there. Now the second sleep state, the second most common one, is probably the one you were expecting, the dream. When I say a dream, I'm talking about a very traditional dream, one in which you actually visually experience another world and can engage with it with your senses, assuming that you're sighted in day-to-day life. If you're not, then it might not be a visual experience, but a fully engaging sensory experience nonetheless. This is obviously the state that you're expecting to be in when you're having a lucid dream, but it's not necessarily the only state that you'll encounter in the process. You might run into one of these other states depending on what you do. The third most common state is SP or sleep paralysis, a state in which you feel awake but paralysed in bed. And while it feels very much like you're awake, you're actually still asleep, and so you can experience visual, auditory and even motor hallucinations, the last of which I believe are key to the fourth and final state, the least common of them all. The fourth and final sleep state is the OOBE, or out-of-body experience, which is the sensation of leaving your body that can occur during sleep paralysis, which is thought to be a type of vestibular motor hallucination. There are some definite similarities with a traditional dream, but there are also some significant differences, some of which I'll talk about later in the video. Now that we've gone over the 4 states in my model, I'd like to go over the 2 or 3 methods of lucid dreaming. So all techniques can be classified under one of these 2 or 3 methods of achieving lucidity. So the first method is WILD or the wake-induced lucid dream. In this method, you start awake, you start in the wakefulness state, and using your chosen technique, awareness is maintained all the way through the process of entering into a dream. This way you are already lucid when you get into the dream. You maintain awareness the whole time. Now you can either enter a dream straight from the waking state, or you can enter sleep paralysis first, and from there continue on into a dream. Examples of techniques that fall under the WILD method umbrella would be WILD itself or something like DILD. So with WILD, for example, you start awake and you are relaxing through the process of going to sleep, and you can either enter into sleep paralysis or you can go directly into the dream. With DILD, you're focusing on the last dream that you had and you're maintaining awareness on that, and you usually go directly from the waking state into the dream. The second lucid dreaming method is DILD, or the dream-induced lucid dream. You are in a dream, not yet lucid, and then you become lucid. There is no chain of awareness going from wakefulness into the dream. It's a spontaneous awareness that happens inside the dream, either seemingly completely spontaneous and without reason, or due to using a particular technique prior to sleep. So examples here would be something like reality checks for one. You're practicing throughout the day, doing things like pinching your nose closed, trying to breathe, trying to poke a finger through your hand and so on. And you keep practicing this, and one day you end up doing this in a dream, and it proves to you that you're in a dream, and so you spontaneously become lucid at that moment. Another example would be mild. You recite a mantra while you're about to go back to sleep after waking up in REM, and when you enter the dream, that mantra stays in your subconscious, and so you seemingly have this sudden realization that you're in a dream in the middle of your next dream. Now, these two methods are sort of accepted and understood by the community at large. There is a third method that I like to describe just because I don't think it fits into either of the other two boxes, but you're probably not going to hear that many other people using this term. This is a term that I use myself. And the third method that I talk about is SILD, the sleep-induced lucid dream. So again, this is less of an official term, but what I use this to describe is when you become lucid during the void state rather than during a dream. So it's very similar to DILD, except that you're in the void state between dreams rather than in a dream when it happens. Pretty much semantics here, but I like to use this term. Now, as an example of when this one can occur, this can occur when you're meditating regularly and for long periods of time, because you start to become aware throughout more of the waking day and also through your sleeping night. And so this can mean becoming aware even when you're not actually in a dream currently, and even in the non-REM stages of sleep, which is quite interesting. So the next thing I'd like to discuss is dreams versus out-of-body experiences. One of the reasons that I think traditional dreams and out-of-body experiences are often confused or conflated, when I personally believe them to be two separate sleep states, is because of the similarity in and resulting confusion regarding their induction techniques. So, out-of-body experience induction techniques have the user entering sleep paralysis to perform them, just as you'll see many wild lucid dreaming tutorials suggest that you do. So it's very easy for someone to perform wild and think that they've performed an out-of-body experience induction technique, or vice versa. And it's also very easy for someone to have experience with one of those techniques and sort of just be under the impression that they're the same thing based on that similarity in their induction. However, in my experience, there is a very key difference between the two, and it made a whole lot more sense to me when I found this study that I referenced in a previous video that talked about out-of-body experiences as motor hallucinations that occur during sleep paralysis rather than as a dream. And the key difference here is just that, movement. Out-of-body experience techniques rely on inducing the hallucinatory sensation of movement. Basically, you are imagining yourself moving in some way to induce that disconnect, that feeling of disconnect from your body, and to induce that sensation as if you left it. Due to this, there also appears to be a requirement to first be in sleep paralysis, whereas while some guides will say to enter sleep paralysis, you really don't need to, you can skip straight into the dream. With wild, you're taking your conscious awareness and maintaining that awareness through the process of falling asleep and entering a dream. With an out-of-body experience induction technique, you are trying to induce the sensation of movement. And so common techniques would be something like the rope technique, where you imagine yourself climbing up out of your body when in sleep paralysis, or the swing technique, where you imagine yourself swinging backwards and forwards until you start to actually feel that physical sensation. There does appear to be one exception to needing to be in sleep paralysis for an out-of-body experience, and that is when chemicals are involved. Someone under heavy anesthesia can have an out-of-body experience because of the fact that certain anesthetics are actually dissociatives, NMDA antagonists, that basically can shut down parts of the brain temporarily involved in your sense of self and your body, and lead to you having one of these experiences without actually consciously inducing it yourself. I suspect that at least in many cases, this is an explanation for a lot of near-death experiences that occur in hospitals. Someone is under a heavy dose of anesthesia and ends up having one of these out-of-body experiences because of the anesthesia that they're under. Next, I want to talk about moving between states. So you can move between some of the states. When you're awake, you can enter into a dream directly with something like wild. You can enter into sleep paralysis, whether you're performing wild or a different technique, or you just end up there. Or if you're not aware and you're just going to sleep normally, then the first place you usually end up is the void, because you're not yet in REM and so you're not yet having any dreams. While you're in the void, you can enter into a dream. This is typically done by just waiting for the dream to form without doing anything that might stir you into wakefulness. While you're in the void, you can also wake yourself up into sleep paralysis. This is usually done by waking up with the intention of entering sleep paralysis and not moving. Or you can wake yourself up completely. This is done by simply opening your eyes and moving around normally. But what you seemingly can't do is enter directly into an out-of-body experience without first entering sleep paralysis. While you're in a dream, you can enter the void, and this happens when a dream ends. If you see a dream destabilizing, don't think I'm waking up, think I'm entering the void now. And when you're in the void, if you're patient and you don't try to move your body or anything, and you stay still and you keep your eyes closed, then you can usually enter another dream straight after. So this is a great way of increasing how many lucid dreams you have. You can also wake yourself up in sleep paralysis, exactly the same way as I described with the void. You can wake yourself up completely, again, exactly the same way. But once again, you seemingly can't enter directly into an out-of-body experience unless you first enter sleep paralysis and go there from there. While you're in sleep paralysis, you can enter a dream by simply continuing your awareness. You can induce an out-of-body experience by inducing those movement hallucinations through something like the rope technique. Or you can wake yourself up, but what you seemingly can't do, at least in my experience, is enter from sleep paralysis into the void state. Finally, while you're in an out-of-body experience, you can wake yourself up into sleep paralysis. You can wake yourself up entirely, but what you seemingly can't do is enter the void experience once again. So why is this visual model helpful? Well, first of all, I think it's just going to help me describing certain concepts in videos in future. It helps some of you guys understand some of the unique terminology I use here, like the SILD and stuff like that. But also, by thinking about these different states, we can be more conscious of our options when attempting to lucid dream. For example, when a dream ends, like I said, rather than immediately moving and opening your eyes, you can realize that you're currently in the void and transfer from there into a new dream with a little patience. You can even practice navigating between all 5 states. For example, performing a technique like WILD or DILD and entering a dream directly, then allowing the dream to fade so that you enter the void. From there, being patient and allowing a new dream to form. Then waking yourself up in sleep paralysis and attempting to induce an out-of-body experience. Allowing yourself to experience all 5 states, the 5th being wakefulness. So this is a great way to examine the similarities and differences between the states and sort of build your own model and do that through your own experiences. Because I think, for something like this, there is nothing better than learning about all of this yourself through trial and error. That's how I came to these conclusions, and I think you guys should do the same thing. I highly encourage anyone who's interested in lucid dreaming or any of these things to experiment lots and learn the rules of how these things work through experimentation, not just assuming that what other people say is exactly how things are. Because I'm always learning, other people are always learning, and so a far more reliable source often ends up being direct experience. With that said, I think this is a good point to cut the video short. But before we go, I'm going to give you guys some discount codes, and I'm going to do this a bit differently than usual. On screen, you can now see 3 discount codes. You can use code 10 off to get 10% off, you can use code 25 off to get 25% off, or you can use code 50 off to get 50% off any of my products. Now these codes are only valid for the next 48 hours, but I'm experimenting with something different here in that you can choose which code you use. The codes are unlimited during those 48 hours, so there is no limit to how many times people can get the 50% off or the 10% off or the 25% off. The original intent was to offer slightly bigger discounts to those who might be affected financially by the current situation that is going on. But I figured, you know what, as an experiment, I'll just leave it up to you guys. Maybe everyone uses the 50% off discount and there's no point in offering the different ones. Maybe not, we'll see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this and you want more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and enable all notifications. And if you want to keep watching, check out one of those videos on screen. Go watch that and I will see you there soon. Take care.